This is the guided progressive muscle relaxation exercise. I'm in a seated position. My back is erect. My shoulders are relaxed. And my head feels balanced as it rests on my neck. If I don't feel this way, I take a moment to adjust my posture and position. I relax the muscles of my face, and I also soften my gaze. My feet are planted flat on the floor. My arms hang to the sides of my body. I take a moment to notice a few breaths, notice them going in and out naturally without my trying to control it. And I notice its rhythm, and I notice where I feel my breath most vividly at my nostril, in my belly, in my throat, maybe in my chest or shoulders. As we go through this exercise, we will be paying attention to the way our body feels, the sensations that we get. We ask ourselves, what am I noticing about my body right now? Do I feel tension? Do I feel relaxation? How intense are those sensations? As we apply tension to our muscles, we should be mindful of pain. The goal is not to apply so much tension that we cause pain. The goal is to understand what it feels to have tension and relaxation and all the shades of gray in between. Remember, as we progress through this exercise, we will be applying tension to only one muscle group at a time. Once I'm done with one muscle group, I bring it back to its original position, and then I move on to the next muscle group. I maintain a curious and non judgmental attitude as I go through this. There is no right or wrong way to feel. If at the end of this exercise I don't quite understand what tension or relaxation is or what it feels like, that's okay. This is a process and it can take a little practice to get there. I begin with my dominant arm. If I'm right handed, then it's my right arm. If I'm left handed, it's my left arm. We'll be exploring everything from the tip of my fingers up to just below my shoulders. As my arm is hanging effortlessly on my side, I gently make a fist. And I notice how that feels for a moment. And I gradually add tension to that fist. And each time I make a change, I notice how that feels. And I notice that I can add tension in various ways. I can clench my fist together so tightly it feels like my nails are digging into my palms. I can also add tension to that gentle fist without digging my nails into my palms. I notice I can add tension on my thumbs more towards my index finger, and more towards my pinky finger. Then I tense my biceps. This is the front part of my upper arm. We need to bend the elbow at least slightly in order to add tension to our biceps. I can take the hand in my other arm and cross it over my chest and put it on my bicep. And as I add tension to the bicep, I can feel it get harder and stiffer. I bring that other hand and arm back to its original position. Once I get a sense of what a tensed bicep feels to the touch. And with a tense fist and tense biceps in my dominant arm, I pull my wrist upwards toward my bicep, and I pretend that there's something behind my elbow, and I push against it, keeping my arm tense and still. If I'm sitting on a chair with an armrest, I can push my elbow against that armrest. I take in what it feels like to have my arm tense this way, and I can change the tenseness of the different parts of my arm and hands. And I notice how that feels as well. Remember, the point of this is not to make my hands and my arms as tense as they can be, but it's to get to know and experience and understand what tenseness feels like for me in its various shapes and sizes. There is no right or wrong way to feel here. I'm just being curious and non judgmental about tension and relaxation in my body. Now I let go of the tension in that arm. I can do that gradually or I can do that slowly. And I bring that arm back to its original position. But as I do this, I notice the sensation of relaxation. I can compare it to what tension felt like. And I notice the control that I feel. I made my body tense and I made my body relaxed. Even though the tension and the relaxation may not be complete, I notice that I have some control, at least over its intensity. And now my attention is turned to my non dominant arm. I make a fist, and I can make this fist in the way I did before. I can do it differently. I can make it tense quickly or slowly. And I tense my biceps. And I can use my other arm and my other hand to touch that bicep to see what it feels like when it's tense. And then I can put that hand back in its place. And I can pull my wrist upward. And I can also push that elbow down against an imaginary arm of a chair or an actual arm of a chair. And I take a moment here to experience what it feels like to have a tense, non dominant arm. And when I'm ready, I let go of the tension in that arm and in that hand, and I bring it back gently to my side. I can let go of the tension quickly. I can let go of that tension slowly. But I notice and I'm aware of how it feels to let go of that tension. I turn my attention to my forehead, my lower cheeks and jaw. I can add tension as slowly or as quickly as I would like, and I can modulate the amount of tension from just a little bit to a lot more than that. So I lift my eyebrows as high as possible, and I can do that slowly or quickly and with a lot or a little tension, but I do want to add a lot more tension if I started with a little, or I want to see what it feels like with a little tension if I started with a lot. And I bite my teeth together again in the same way as I described for my eyebrows. And I pull the corners of my mouth backwards towards my ear. I make myself aware of the sensations I have as I do this, and I notice the tension that I have and how that feels different from relaxation. And I do this with curiosity and without judgment. There's no right or wrong way to feel about this. And I continue with this until I feel ready to let go of the tension. And when I do let go of that tension, I notice what that feels like. And I wonder if I can make myself completely relaxed. But if I can't, that's okay as well. But I notice the difference in the amount of tension there is. And when I'm ready, I move on to my neck and throat. I pull my chin down toward my chest as far as I can go without actually touching my chest. And once I find that spot, I imagine that there's something pushing against the back of my head. And without actually moving my neck or my head, I have tension so that I'm pushing against that imaginary thing that's pushing down on the back of my head. I'm having the muscles in the front and back part of my neck work against each other. And I turn my attention to how this feels. Again, I can add tension or I can let go of some tension. And I can go back and forth. And I notice how that feels. Again, the point is not to make myself so tense so that I feel pain. It's important to learn what my limits are during this exercise. It's a powerful thing to know my limits so that I avoid them. And when I'm ready, I let go of the tension in my neck and throat, and I bring it back to its original position. And I notice what it feels like to have an absence of tension. And again, I wonder if I can be completely relaxed in that part of my body, but it's also okay to not be able to reach complete relaxation. Next, we move on to our shoulders, chest and upper back, and abdomen. We take a deep breath and we hold it. And as I'm holding my breath, I make my stomach hard by pushing it out, making it hard as if someone is about to hit me in the stomach. It's okay to breathe out and take a breath in again at any point, but I do need to remember to take that deep breath in and make my stomach hard again. The other thing I do during this part of this exercise is I pull both of my shoulder blades back and I try to make them touch. And as I do this, I'm trying to keep my arms as relaxed as possible. And when I'm ready, I take a deep breath in and make my stomach hard. And I keep my shoulder blades back and together. And I hold that position in tension. Because I have to hold my breath to apply tension to this muscle group, I do this a couple times. And I try varying the amount of tension I apply and also the length, the duration of the tension that I apply. And when I feel ready, I release the tension from these muscles and I pay attention to the way that feels, the difference between the way it felt with tension and now without. I try to see if I can completely relax and see what that feels like. But if I can't, that's okay. I'm being attentive and aware of how my body feels when tension is released. And when I'm ready, I get ready to move on to the next muscle group. I turn my attention to my dominant leg. For me, that's my right foot. For other people, it might be their left foot. I straighten my knee completely or slightly, and I push the bottom of my thigh down against the chair I'm sitting on. I vary the duration and intensity of the tension I'm applying. It can be as much tension as I can apply without pain. It could be as little, and it could be somewhere in between. And I pay attention to the way my leg feels, particularly the thigh. I take my hand and place my hand underneath that thigh, and I vary the intensity of the tension I'm applying and see how it changes, how stiff and how hard my thigh is. And when I'm ready, I bring the bottom of my foot and plant it on the floor and release the tension in my leg. I notice how that feels, the difference between tension and relaxation. Again, I try to see if I can completely relax my leg, but it's okay if I can't. I'm being very aware and attentive to the way my leg feels. I turn my attention to the next muscle group, my non dominant leg. As with my dominant leg, I lift my foot off the floor by straightening my knee. It can be completely, it can be somewhat slightly, or somewhere in between. And I push down the bottom of my thigh against the chair. Again, I vary the intensity and duration of the tension I'm applying, and I'm attentive to the way my leg feels. And again, I can put my hand underneath my thigh and see how that feels with a lot of tension and with a little tension. And I return my hand back to its original position when I'm done with that. And when I'm ready, I release tension from this leg and I bring the bottom of my foot back against the floor in its original position. Again, I pay attention to the way this feels, the way my leg feels when tension is released. And again, I see if I can completely relax. But if I can't, that's okay. As we come to the close of this exercise, congratulate yourself for sticking with it. You're on the road to a deeper understanding and control of yourself. This concludes the exercise.